Good day everyone, this is Joy Khan from our university channel and I'm wholeheartedly welcoming you in this video in which I'm going to have a discussion with you about the books that literally changed my life forever. Yes. So first of all, while I was doing my BBA, in the first year of my BBA, I read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and this book changed my life forever. In the first year of my BBA, I had a goal in my mind that I want to become financially free and financially independent. For that reason, I started looking for books that could literally change my life forever, and I found one, and this book was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read some other books too, but this book in particular by Robert Kiyosaki has got some very good ideas about how you can become financially free, how you can become financially independent. In this book, Robert Kiyosaki discussed some important aspects about the perception of money. The most important thing about people being rich or poor is actually their philosophy, how they see the world. The world is an amazing place, it's an abundant place, but the rich people and the poor people, they see the world through different eyes, different windows, you might say. It's because rich people, they actually have a philosophy of contribution, they have a mindset of productivity, they have a mindset of attitude, a positive attitude towards their life, and that's what is reflected in this book by Robert Kiyosaki. Robert Kiyosaki, being a person with financial information and knowledge, he told us that the philosophy is the most important part in terms of making a difference between a rich man and poor man. He had two dads, one was rich and one was poor. His poor dad was a job holder, he used to do a job, and his rich dad was a businessman. And there was a huge deal of difference between these two people, these two fathers that he had, and he learned a great deal from each of them. And he focused on being both sides of the end. That means he left his first part of the life being a rich person, and then later on he became interested in serving the society by promoting financial education, which he did through the book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I recommend you to read this book very carefully, and I can assure you, if you read this book will change your life forever. So always make sure that you read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I believe this is going to change your life forever. Then I would like to recommend you to read this book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. One of the important aspects of life these days is psychology. Okay? A lot of you maybe think that Mark Zuckerberg, who is the founder of Meta or Facebook, whatever you might call, he's actually a computer scientist. No, he's not. He's actually a psychologist who is hacking your psychology through your dopamine addiction by being logged into the Facebook. Even look at YouTube. It's a dopamine rush too, right? They're using psychological techniques so that they could attain influence over the people. And it's got some positive sides too, but I think the most important thing about modern society is psychology, how you see the world, your perception about the world, how you're perceiving your reality. And for that reason, you got to have emotional intelligence. You see, everybody wants to become successful in their lives. Everyone wants to have all the money, all the abundance, all the respect, all the status they want. But not everyone is going to have the mentality to sacrifice, to do the necessary things. And that's what Daniel Goleman clearly described in his book called Emotional Intelligence. And if you want to become successful, if you want to become a star, you got to have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the key measure of your success. For example, let me tell you one thing. A lot of you have got chance in public universities, and a lot of you think that you have attained something really great. But let me tell you one thing, you haven't attained the real thing yet. You got to think about your career. What's your career going to be? How you're going to be contributing to your society? How you're going to have an impact over the lives of billions of people whom you can serve. Okay? So I told you about my vision of changing billions of people's lives, and I'm doing it by the means of spreading education and knowledge. Okay? And if you really want to be successful, you got to have emotional intelligence. Everyone thinks about that being intelligent is probably the best thing these days. It's actually not. In any organization or corporations, everyone at the top are of equal level of intelligence. The key difference between the top people who go to the top and who stays at the bottom then becomes the issue called emotional intelligence. You got to have a very good emotional intelligence over your lives. You got to have a very good judgmental sense. Most of the people and most of the women, they make wrong decisions. It's because they don't have what you might call emotional intelligence. So you can very much be benefited if you read this book, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. Okay. Then I would like to recommend you to read this book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's one of my favorite books. Okay, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. How are you going to be benefited from reading this book? You see, the effective people, the people who are successful, they have certain habits, certain patterns which they employ in their lives, and these are called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And Stephen R. Covey, he wrote this book. In this book, he identified 7 characteristics, and he identified that you got to become a person who understands other people, rather than just you want to make sure that you understand. You want to make them understand you. You got to understand them. He also told about being proactive. In this book, Covey told about being proactive. Now, what is proactivity or proactive? How can you become proactive? First of all, you got to take information, but you cannot react to world. Okay, if there is something bad happening in your life, if you just react, if something bad happens in your life and if you start crying, you're not going to get good results out of your life. So you got to have what you might call as being proactivity. Okay, and also you got to have a very good sense about your internal self. You got to have a very good sense about the best side of you. Okay, and the other habits that he told about that you got to start with the end in mind. What is going to happen in the end? Okay, we all start different types of works, but we got to think about the end too. What is the end result? You see, I can gain numerous benefits for short-term works, but short-term works will probably not be fruitful for me in the long run. So something happens in the long run that you got to be taking care of. Okay, so you got to think what? Long-term. Also, it's all about public and private victory. You see, if you attain a huge deal of thing in the minds of public and in yourself, you feel down. So you have not achieved the great things which you thought that you could achieve. Okay, so you got to go for public victory and private victory too. Okay, and also you got to have good quality of thinking win-win. Okay, every business deal, everything that you are participating in, for example, if you are doing my course, you got to think that you will win from my course, you will be benefited from my course. Okay, but all the people who are thinking that they are thinking win-lose, if I buy this I will lose, this sort of thinking doesn't pay you in the long run, because we live in a cooperative society. We got to think win-win if we want to succeed in our lives. Okay, so you got to make sure that you think win-win all the time in every aspect of your life, and you got to give in order to receive. All those who want to receive, first they must give. Unless you give, will you receive? You won't receive. So you got to make sure that. All right, okay, put first thing first. There are certain things which are important. We discussed about the term called 80-20 rule. There are some things in your life which are more important than others, right? And those important things needed to be taken care of. So you got to make sure that you put first things first. So Covey's book, this book can literally change your life, and it will help you develop yourself to a great extent. He also wrote about sharpening the saw. That means you got to enhance your skills. For example, you have got judged in public university. Now, the difference between you and all the thousands of public university students, there is no difference. You got to develop yourself. Okay, you got to enhance your skills. For example, if you look at me, my English language skills are better than most of the people's, and even most of the university teachers who give lectures, most of the people at secretariats, is because I have invested in these skills. I developed myself. Okay, and I have sharpened my saw. So you got to make sure that you develop your skills too. The earlier you are going to develop your English language skills, the better results you are going to get out of your life. So make sure that you sharpen your saw, you enhance your skill. There are thousands of types of skills. From my BBA life experience, I have developed my communication skills to a great extent, and my communication skills has been significantly developed by my amazing experiences with the social peoples of Jahangirnagar University. and I've been really fascinated by the social aspects of it, and that's why I'm really grateful. So you got to, everywhere you go, make sure that you develop your skills. Okay, all right. This book is a very good example of how you can develop yourself. I would like to recommend you to read this book completely and make sure that you change your life by reading this book again and again and again and again. The more you're going to, and you got to remember one thing. Let me tell you one thing. Don't just read these books. Use these books. The more you're going to use these books, the better you're going to get, and the more happier you're going to become. So read this book again and again, and most importantly, employ and use these principles in your day-to-day lives, and you will see massive and rapid change in your life. You will see and you will realize that amazing things, miraculous things are happening in your day-to-day lives. So I'm now ending up our video about the top 3 books which literally changed my life. I would like to recommend you, all of you, to read these books and to enjoy learning about these books, and also using these principles in your day-to-day life. If you use this principle in your day-to-day life, I can assure you your life is going to change. You're going to see massive level of development, progress, and you're going to attain happiness, success, joy in every aspect of your life. So thank you very much.